Michigan Wolverines head to Maryland with a chance to set up a winner-take-all matchup with the Buckeyes. As we welcome in Anthony Bellino. You see him every morning here on BCSN with the X's and Bros show. Anthony, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Always a pleasure, especially on a victory day like today. So I'm happy to be here, my friend.
Anthony, we just heard about Aiden Hutchinson, the performance he had against Penn State, earning Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week honors, and now there's some chatter that he should be a Heisman Trophy candidate. Your thoughts on whether A, defensive player should be recognized as the best player in all of college football, and B, is Aiden Hutchinson such a player?
I think that Aiden Hutchinson is definitely such a player. It all depends on what you want out of the Heisman. What really is the Heisman Trophy? You know, over the last few years, it felt like the best quarterback on the best team. Which, I mean, I don't know if it still has the same luster, the same allure that it once had. But Aiden Hutchinson is definitely a guy. And I think that when you think about who's the best player in college football, who is a guy that you must account for on every single play, and that's a guy like Aiden Hutchinson. And he and David Ojabo on the other side, they both definitely made their presence felt in that Penn State game. And to have bookend tight ends like that, I mean, enjoy it while it lasts, because they're not going to be here for very much longer when you start to look at the bigger picture. But can a defensive player win the Heisman? Yeah, they can. They have before. It's been Charles Woodson at the University of Michigan. But I don't know. In today's world where we're so consumed by highlights and statistics, should he be in the conversation? Yeah, I think that he should be in the conversation. I think that recognizing more people for the Heisman Trophy is definitely, I think that's definitely a positive for the award overall, because I think it needs a little bit more hype. It feels like it's lost a little bit of its prestige, if you will, because I think it's gotten real monotonous over the last few years. So yeah, I think mix it up. I think Georgia has a defensive lineman that you might consider taking a look at, Kenneth Walker. Obviously, he's going to be in that conversation. Whoever Alabama's quarterback is, because you know they're going to put up a crazy amount of numbers. You could throw that name in the hat too. So I think that his name it's good for college football right now in the conversation. Does he get an invite to New York? I don't know, but it's fun.
Certainly one fun aspect of the game for Michigan last week against Penn State, something that has troubled them in the past, substitution issues on defense against an up-tempo offense. They did not have that problem against Penn State. That bodes very well for the Wolverines over their next couple of games.
Oh, it's extremely important, especially when you start to take a look at who's coming down the road in a couple of weeks. So being able to make that adjustment, seeing that teams are going to try to exploit it, and then maybe putting on film like, hey, we thought maybe up-tempo would get them. Maybe that's not going to be the case. So whatever the package might be, if they're a little bit more versatile, you start looking at what many teams call the Viper or the Star. It's basically like a hybrid, basically like a nickel, big enough to be a linebacker, fast enough to be able to chase down wide receivers if necessary. Maybe bring you a little bit more versatility. Maybe not have all the beef up front. But I really think that when going back to Ojabo and Hutchinson, when you have those two on the defensive line, I think that having ends with that kind of speed, not only enabled to rush the quarterback, but also in order to chase down rushers, if that might be, or be able to maybe flare out into the flats a little bit and provide you some versatility there in coverage and being able to mix up your defensive schemes a tad bit. That kind of versatility bodes really well, and I think it was a definite improvement for Michigan defensively in order to be able to make the adjustment, be able to get substitution packages in there that they really liked that would prove to be good on first, second, and third down, no matter the distance.
The Viper position, that was synonymous with Don Brown's defense. Of course, he's no longer in Ann Arbor. When Mike McDonald came in, some of the Vipers in Michigan's room decided to leave. Michael Barrett, not one of those guys, and we've seen that pay off the last couple of weeks as Michael Barrett has taken that hybrid position and has really made it his own the last few weeks.
It's important. It definitely is, especially in today's college football game. There aren't too many defenses around the country that don't have that guy. You're not going to see a whole lot of traditional 3-4 or 4-3, and I think we're even starting to see maybe the trickle up effect of that a little bit in the professional game, where your nickel has to be somebody that can not only cover but also has to be able to provide some sort of stability in stopping the run. And I think that when you look at a guy with that versatility, once again, kind of that keyword, take on your role, whatever that might be. Make the coaches have to play you because you're that good. And I think that that's really what that role has kind of become across the college football landscape, is a guy that is good enough on defense, that can play multiple positions, can handle multiple assignments and responsibilities at the same time, and provide your defense with the flexibility no matter what the package is on offense that's coming at you.
at Penn State. For the first time this season, Cade McNamara took every snap at quarterback. J.J. McCarthy did not play, and Jim Harbaugh said that's just kind of how the game played out. Nobody owns any positions. At best, you lease a position. But you can tell there's now some growing confidence in Cade McNamara. We won't get into the discussion about the long-term quarterback position at Michigan, but I think for the rest of the season, it's clear they're going to live and die with Cade McNamara.
And I think that's the right choice. I think that Michigan State game, when the lights are the brightest, the pressure cooker is on. Cade's giving you the stability. He's done enough to win every game. And I look at this Penn State game, it's a victory on the road, a team that, is getting some ranking consideration there. That was Penn State. You go on the road, you beat them. It's a big win for Jim Harbaugh. It's a big win against, James Franklin. It's a big win in the division. All around, you got to feel really good if you're a Michigan fan. I don't necessarily think that it was in the same form and fashion that, we typically see our neighbors to the south. You can't help but compare them because that's the standard that you want to meet, right? I think that Michigan had plenty of opportunities. I still would like to see them get creative. In a 4th and 2 situation, near midfield, and they go into a goal line package. And it's like, it's so predictable sometimes. It wouldn't, would it kill to see Cade McNamara do a little play action? Maybe they're saving it for later. I'm not really sure. You take a look at his numbers, nothing too crazy. 19 of 29, 217, 3 touchdowns. One of those, the long 47-yard catch and run from Eric All. Love that guy. I think he's fantastic. Think he should see more targets per game if they can continue to get him the football. Would still like to see Cade McNamara in this offense do a little bit more in that intermediate distance, right? That 10 to 15 yards. Don't have to bomb it down the field 60, but, make the defense think about, maybe you might want to take the top off this thing and let it fly a little bit. So I think that it's a good thing that they're sticking with Cade McNamara. I think it's good for the team overall. You don't need to get too cute with anything. Like, you got to buckle down and win these next 2 football games. And it's important that everybody knows and everybody's on the same page. Like, look, we're going to ride or die with Cade.
Jim Harbaugh said the biggest winner in Happy Valley on Saturday was the sport of football as a whole. And it certainly was an interesting mood in that 4th quarter. After Penn State had come back to tie it, I think you had 2 fan bases on pins and needles because neither one really trusts their coach, their team to win a game in the 4th quarter. How important from a mental aspect is it for the Wolverine fans to see Michigan pull out a game like that in the 4th?
Huge, because it had Michigan State written all over it. I mean, didn't it, Mark? I mean, it kind of felt like, okay, this thing is slipping a little bit. It's 14-6, and now all of a sudden things are getting a little hairy. We need a big time touchdown. And they finally were able to do that. I think that they definitely could have put more points on the board. There's still some times of frustration within this offense, but regardless on what the score could have been, you'd much rather learn from a win than learn from a loss here, especially coming down the home stretch and be able to get a win like that against Penn State when, so many within the Michigan fan base. I mean, I think that a lot of fans are ready to hit the transfer portal any moment. When you really look at how they respond to things on Twitter, it was important for this team to get that metal pinned on their chest, like, hey, yeah, no, we actually did this. We might have learned a little bit from that Michigan State loss, and we came out here, we closed out a football game, able to score some points in the 4th quarter to be able to do it. It was very stressful. Some big defensive plays there near the end of the game as well. So I think all in all, really good effort from the Wolverines. Very, very important game. Still would like to see more, as I continue to say, in that passing game. Hassan Haskins did about all that he could. I mean, they asked him to run the football a whole lot since there was no Blake Corum, and it was interesting to kind of see how that dynamic was going to work. Michigan wanted to run the football. They did so. I mean, he was averaging 5 yards a carry, and when you touch it 30 times, that's a pretty nice number. So it provided them a little bit of flexibility as well.
Knowing what's looming after Maryland, how important is it to have a lighter workload for Hassan Haskins? We're not sure if Blake Corum's going to be able to go against Maryland, but Ohio State's looming. Do you want to see Haskins maybe have a lighter load against Maryland to rest up a little bit? Because it looks like they're going to have to use him quite a bit against Ohio State.
Yeah, God forbid we just come out and blow the doors off of somebody and build like a 35-0 lead. Like, I know that might be asking kind of a lot here in the sport of college football, but I think you got to go. You got to stick to your guns. I really do. And, if Hassan's got to carry it 20 times in this football game, whatever it takes to win, because you can't get to Ohio State until you get through Maryland. And it's whatever is going to work in that particular game. If Hassan is running the ball like an absolute maniac and they can't stop him, and that's what it's going to take to win that football game, then you have to do it, because you have to take care of business this Saturday before you can get to next Saturday.
You have been consistent with that message all season long. You have to worry about this week. And that was a message echoed by the team talking about this week, that, yeah, they're fully aware that Ohio State is coming up in 2 weeks, but they have to get through Maryland first Mentally, is that going to be an issue, or do you think they've preached that all season long? That's just what they're going to do. They're going to focus on Maryland, and then they'll focus on Ohio State.
Oh man, you know what, Mark? I'm glad I don't have to do this. That much is for sure. I think it's challenging. I think it's a lot more difficult than what people really seem to give it credit for. I think that every team, they say that we, 1 week at a time, and that's how we try to approach it in the sports world. But who's at the end of the calendar, right? And that they're doing things throughout the week that are in preparation for that game for the end of the year, because everybody knows how big it is. But I really think for this football game, you can't preach it; you have to live it. They've done a pretty good job of doing that so far. I even think the Michigan State game, you can't fault them for trying to look ahead. I mean, that was the biggest game on the schedule, and it was because it was that actual week, that actual Saturday. And I think that they might have learned from that. They know how much a loss can actually damage this team. So you still got to come out. I still don't want to see them take the approach of being afraid to lose, right? I think there's a vast difference between being afraid to lose and wanting to win. And I think that you can see a lot of that within play calling. You can see it a lot of times in how players are actually responding out there on the football field. This team has got to come out against Maryland like they want to be the hammer. They need to be able to go out there and assert their dominance early. And I think that that's what this football team is going to want to do. I'm talking first half, punch them in the mouth and do not let off in the second half. And you have to get after it, send a message across the league that, hey, it's going to stink to be Maryland this weekend, but we want everybody to see on Saturday, the Michigan train is coming, and they have to believe that. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to actually be able to believe that and to be able to execute that on the football field. But if they can have a statement victory here against Maryland, I know you might be thinking a statement victory. I'm talking, run this football team off the field when you see them. If they do that, then it might have everybody's attention. Like, wait a minute now, like they're ready to buckle down. I think that that's the way you approach this Maryland team. We're going to come out there. This is what we're going to do. This is what they do well. We're going to take away what they do well, and we are going to send a message to the world of college football. We might have had a little bit of a mix-up in the fourth quarter in East Lansing. We're not going to allow that to happen again, and we're ready for the following Saturday.
Looking at a lot of the bowl projections right now, and Michigan going to the Rose Bowl seems to be a pretty popular pick with Ohio State in the college football playoff. So that is presuming that Ohio State is going to beat Michigan, and Michigan will end up in the Rose Bowl. So my question for you and for Wolverine fans, is it acceptable to go to the Rose Bowl? That means you lost to Ohio State.
Ooh, I mean, $1 million question. I don't think the answer to that is yes. I really don't. I mean, it's wonderful. There's a lot of tradition there. The bowl system needs a complete revamping. That's another topic for another 4-hour show that you and I can do together, Mark. I'm looking forward to that. Stay tuned to BCSN for details. I think I just pitched a show idea. But when you really look at the Rose Bowl, the tradition, what it matters, we can preach that it does. But it all comes down to Ohio State. And if Michigan loses to Ohio State, Michigan State loses to Ohio State, and the Rose Bowl selects Michigan, we know why they selected Michigan, right? It's because of that Michigan brand, that Michigan power. And I really think that even though I am a Michigan fan, looking at it from a perspective of our friends in East Lansing, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you pick Michigan over Michigan State if they both have 2 losses, but Michigan State beat them heads up. So I think that there would be a very legitimate gripe there from the Spartans. Now, they have their work cut out for them in the next 2 weeks, too. Penn State looming and Ohio State as well, both on their calendar. So they're not out of the woods yet either. But if both teams had 2 losses, ooh, that'd be really tough. I still don't think. I think you have to beat Ohio State. That's the goal. That's where you want to be. That they are the benchmark, the hallmark of the Big Ten. If you can beat them, you can kind of prove to everybody that, hey, we finally did it. And it would be a giant proverbial monkey off the shoulder here for the Michigan Wolverines and for head coach Jim Harbaugh.
All right, thank you very much, Anthony Bellino. You see him every morning here on BCSN at the X's and Bros Show. Anthony, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you.